Welcome back. Well, yes, now we turn our attention to what seems to be happening in some state houses of assembly, as though they're going berserk, but we're focusing on that next. We're joined by Mr. Chima Naji, who is a legal practitioner. Thank you for coming on this morning. But perhaps that headline on the front page of Vanguard today, Enugu Assembly crisis, where the governor said to have said, I can't be impeached, Chima boast. But we've seen what's going on in Enugu State House of Assembly. Only recently now, there's Niger State House of Assembly, and one wonders, all of this at this injury time, where we're heading towards the handover session. What do you think is playing out in the states?
Well, I was joking with somebody yesterday. I said, when you cut a snake into two, the snake knows that it certainly is destined to die. It's on its way to the grave. But it will insist that anything it meets on the way, whether the head or the tail, is a candidate for death too. So you see, what is happening now is that injury time is a dangerous time. And if you are hurt within the injury time, your prospect of recuperation or recovery is very, very low. So be that as it may, you know that impeachment in our climate has become like 10 for a penny. Even though the Constitution envisaged a situation where it will be used as a last resort. And in any case, if you look at the Constitution, you cannot impeach a governor or his deputy within 6 months.
But
if you follow the process,
he can do it.
If you follow the process. But because we are not in normal times, the tail is now wagging the head in Nigeria. You can have 4 people meet. Just the important thing is to start off the problem. Because most of the time they are supported by those who have access to the purse. So you just queue up about 4 people or 5 people. Let the problem just get started. Then it's in the public space. Then begin to manage it. But then the House of Assembly will be locked. And because everybody now knows it's a notorious fact of the Supreme Court decision.
Does the law give room for some of these things? Because if they're saying that the reasons for impeachment, some they just put it under that big word, gross misconduct, and every other thing can qualify as gross misconduct.
It's a question of abuse. Because the definition of what gross misconduct comprises of looks very subjective from the assembly point of view. It's just like if you allow the policeman on the street to define who an armed robber is, if he looks at your head and is not fat enough, then he can say, you look like an armed robber. But that is what the law doesn't like. Law wants to treat everybody or every situation equally and made that provision even when such a situation had not arisen. So it's reasonably objective. What constitutes gross misconduct? The framers of the Constitution allowed that kind of space, thinking that many people who comprise the houses of assembly, or in fact the legislative houses, are going to be cerebral people. But you and I know that even those in the executive are not cerebral, even if they parade certificates. We have many of doers in government, and that's why we have riots. No manager is a doer. A manager is supposed to be a thinker, and he uses the artisans to execute. So what you have now in government houses and the legislative houses are doers who are, crisis managers or panel beaters or what have you. The issue of misconduct is supposed to be defined in such a manner that it is dilated to reflect the views and the feelings of the people. Because after all, they are supposed to be representatives of the people. You cannot wake up one day and say, and in any case, those people who have had transactions with people of lewd characters on a Tuesday should not wake up on Saturday to use that. The law doesn't allow that. Against, if you borrowed money under an illegal situation, you cannot come to court and say, because it was illegal for him to have loaned me that money, you are not denying having the money. But so that is what is playing out now. Many of them did bad businesses with the people in government house. So when they now want to assert their independence where it is no longer in their favor, because the governors now want to abuse. You know, when you have played yourself as a rat, Pussycat will pursue you.
Let's speak about the...
I'm seriously trying to understand. Unravel is like, the more I try to unravel, the more complicated it gets for me, you know, through all the allegories you've used to describe just what is happening or playing out in Enugu State.
Generally too.
Exactly, and generally, because it is definitely getting very worrisome. If we say that 6 months should be the period in which...
if you follow the due process in the Constitution.
Exactly, if you follow due process. And then the fact that we're saying that if 4 or 5 people gather, you know, I'm just wondering though, can that kind of act stand? If, for instance, we know that this is what the law says, and that, you know, you need 2/3 majority, say you need 18 people, and only 5 people sat, should anybody be worried that, you know, what those 5 people said could stand?
You must be very, very worried. Because I've told you in this climb, all you need to do is to get the problem started. It can snowball. Let me give you a classical example or illustration. If you insist that you are on your right, if you are driving, and the trailer is coming on the other side, and you are telling the driver, you know, according to section whatever of the traffic law, you are supposed to be on this thing and that particular, by the time the trailer meets you, you will be telling the story to your grandfather. You understand? So that's why many people don't take these things for granted.
But how is it that these 5 people can constitute a trailer in such a way that they threaten the independence or the saneness of the remaining majority?
It is not the driver that is the trailer. It is the machine that is driving. The people behind the 4 or 3 or 5 are the very powerful ones. And they have done bad business with the majority of those who are now agitating. So they know their weaknesses. Now, what they do is they elect their speaker and their own deputy, get the principal officers, and then sack the other ones, and then advance money to them to dispense, and then enjoy the paraphernalia of office, and then make sitting impossible. So that there is no question of going to, because you have to meet in the right place to do the business of the house. But it's not under the mango tree. The law is the decisions of.
Mr. Madi, if we look at the Constitution talks about the amount of days that the members of the Assembly are supposed to sit. It also talks about what some of the things they are supposed to be looking at. You said the procedure for removing a governor.
It can happen in less than 6 months if you follow.
What about the procedure of removing a speaker? I mean, for instance, Enugu, Niger, Enugu and Niger State, they impeached their speakers, or they said they impeached their speakers. In Delta, it had to do with them passing certain laws or remunerations, improving on their remunerations. Look at the timing.
Now, the
is it not going to affect the number of days?
It's not going to affect birth or die when you are 120 years. Okay?
Won't it affect the number of days they are supposed to sit constitutionally?
No. This is not a new assembly. You understand? The assembly the Constitution talks about annually, in a year, in a legislative year, the minimum. It doesn't have to do with, it's just like if you are driving a car to Enugu from Lagos, and you go to Shagamu and change the driver. It does not change the cost of the vehicle or the distance that it has covered. You understand? So it is immaterial who is handling the ship. It is whether the ship is on course. The fact of the matter is that the speaker is usually seen as first among equals. There's no constitutional provision as to who should be a speaker or how to elect him and all that. It is the rules of the House or the Assembly that determines that. You understand? So if four of you or 3 of you meet and say this person should be our leader, that leader must enjoy your confidence, okay, and do everything. As the word leader, he's the first time, he champions, he galvanizes your hopes and aspirations and motivate you towards achieving that mutually agreed goal that will be mutually beneficial. So at each point in time, you can even see that the leader is making sacrifices for you to realize your own, using talents that you probably will not be able to enunciate yourself, and then you respect him. So it's a respect that comes from what we call authority, not power. You know, authority and power are different things. Authority is the psychological correlate of power. Power is physical. It can be conferred. But when you are made as a leader by virtue of authority, people are convinced, those your followers are convinced that you are the one. But if you impose somebody because the constitution or the law says he has to be, then you go into chicaneries, shenanigans, all these small things. You will, if the man comes, yeah, come on, sir, you know, then when he goes, you do the 20 things that will undermine his activities.